Welcome to That Weird Friend podcast. I'm your host, Arianna Kaminsky, and if you're weird, I hope you'll be my friend. Last week, I didn't end up uploading a podcast episode, and originally I thought that today I would just continue with another topic and just not really talk about it, but I figured that would not explain why I didn't do a podcast last week, and I think it's kind of important to talk about because I don't think people talk about it enough. And I think by talking about it more, maybe we can make it more acceptable and not so strange. So I didn't post a podcast last week because I was feeling overwhelmed with a lot of things. And even when I feel overwhelmed, I still feel the need that I have to do everything perfectly. And it's really hard for me to just decide that I can cut back some things that aren't required. I don't make money from this podcast, so I could not post and it wouldn't really affect anyone. I mean, not many people listen to it, so it's not really a big deal. But for me, deciding not to do the podcast last week was a big decision, and it took some constraint because even though I was overwhelmed and had so much work to do, I really wanted to still record the podcast, even though I was overbooked and so tired because my long COVID makes everything so exhausting. But still, I wanted to do the podcast because I'm just thinking that work, just work through it. Don't feel good, work through it. Everything, just work through it, push yourself. But that is a bad way to think because then you get burnt out and then you don't want to do anything at all because every little thing is overwhelming. So I thought it was important to talk about this instead of just going into another topic, kind of delve into why I feel like this because I think other people do too, especially with school. I think especially during this time of the year when midterms are coming up, it's so easy to get overwhelmed with things. And most people, at least people that I've talked to, even if they're really stressed, they will still stay up to 4 a.m. to complete an assignment. And to me, there's just something wrong with that because we're putting our health on the line in order to complete an assignment that doesn't really matter. I mean, you need to still pass the class. I understand that, and you need to get your degree or whatever your goals are, but when it puts you in jeopardy, whether that's your health or staying up to 4 a.m. and not getting enough sleep or your mental health or whatever, why are we so willing to just sacrifice ourselves to do these things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things? You are so much more important than completing the assignment. I mean, this is different if that assignment is 50% of your grade, then that is a big deal. But I'm talking about the assignments that are just one in a dozen that you complete all the time during classes. I had assignments to do for history this week and I was not feeling good, and eventually I had to be okay, I'm going to do this assignment, but I know it's not going to be as good as it would have if I felt like I was up to it, if I felt energetic and that I was able to put in all my work. But I just submitted it anyway because I'm I'd rather do my best right now and see what the teacher grades me instead of just not handing it in for a 0 or trying to put so much time into it knowing that I'm already burnt out and just using all my energy for that history assignment and then having no energy to do anything else. So it was kind of a balance between making sure I get the assignment done but not stressing myself more over it and making sure it's perfect, but more so just getting it done, trying my best, but not trying to overexert myself just for one history assignment that isn't worth that much of my grade because it's not worth it when there's so much other stressful things to deal with right now. So I think that is something a lot of people can deal with. I mean, that they can relate to and they deal with it in different ways. But for me, because I'm just so trained to overwork myself and that working through something is the only way through, I forget that you need to rest, to recharge. And sometimes whenever I feel overwhelmed, I'm just push through it, keep going. And then I get burnt out and then I just need to stop everything for a little while to figure out what am I even doing, because I wasn't thinking about what I was doing anymore. I was just going from one thing to the next to just try to get it done. And then you lose the happiness that those hobbies brought you because you're just trying to get the work done. So I think in this culture right now, it's just kind of like work, do side hustles, get money wherever you can, like get all these side businesses. And it's less focused on like taking time to enjoy those things that you're doing and appreciating it, and taking time off to recharge and be with people who you care about. And I think that's what we should be focusing on right now, especially that hard year that everyone went through, the hard few years that everyone has went through. Like, this should not be the time of like just keep on doing everything so fast and not appreciating things as we do them. I thought that's what that like quarantining during COVID, I thought that's what kind of would have taught everyone to just slow down and appreciate the little things. But once the world opened up again, everyone was just like, I want to do things again, and everyone started doing so many things, which is great. But I think it's also important to take a step back and realize, why am I doing these things? Is it making me happy, or am I just doing it because everyone else is doing it, or because I can do it, but I could be doing something else that makes me happier with this time? So that's just what I'm thinking about at the moment. I feel overwhelmed easily because I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I get into these cycles where I get overwhelmed, I take a step back, then I ease myself into doing work again, doing all my hobbies, and then I get more pressure on myself because I'm like, I need to do this the best I can, and then the whole cycle repeats itself where I get overwhelmed and then I have to take a step back. And I'm just trying to learn how to do that and not have the cycle repeat, but to be able to pace myself so I'm not getting overwhelmed in the first place, so I don't need to take a step back. And so I'm enjoying everything that I'm doing and not feeling pressured. Because a lot of the work that I do with photography or writing or podcasts or blogs, whatever, I don't get paid for it. It's because it's my hobby. So it doesn't make sense that I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. I mean, it does and it doesn't, because I want to, obviously, it would be great to be able to make money from the stuff that is creative and makes me happy. But by putting pressure on myself, that doing this doesn't make me happy. So I'm trying to learn the balance of enough pressure so I can do the best work that I can, but also knowing that if I don't feel well because of long COVID, not to let that stop me, just to keep doing what I'm doing and know that I'm trying my best for that moment. And sometimes that can be trying 100% one day, could be maybe my 50% another day. So it's just about trusting myself and knowing that I'm trying my best no matter what I'm doing, just knowing that the energy that I have for that day might be different than another day, and just trusting that I know I'm working hard. Because I think that's the thing that I always worry about, is if people will think I'm lazy because I'm taking a day off, or not even a day off, but maybe an hour off just to recollect and meditate and just try to find my bearings again and try to figure out what the heck I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I worry that people will think I'm lazy, and that's why I don't take breaks. But the thing is, your body will force you to take a break even if you don't take a break. So if you keep on putting off a break, your body's going to need energy at one point, and you're just going to sleep late one day and miss what you needed to do, or you're just not going to be able to concentrate. It's more apparent because I have long COVID, so my body gives out easier. But I mean, it happens to everyone, I think, where your body, it just like forces you to take a break if you don't do it consciously. And I really think that we could learn a lot from like European countries. How I was in Italy, and a lot of them take breaks during like lunchtime to eat and then take a nap. And if that was done in America, oh my god, I feel like some people would say that they were lazy. Like, imagine if someone came back from their lunch break and they said they just took a nap. I don't know, I feel like in a lot of corporate environments, people would think that they were being lazy or they were a bum or something. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe not everyone would think that, but that's just the thought that I have when I think about that. I think that some people think that if you sleep in, that you're lazy. Like, when I sleep late, when I don't feel good, I always get up and feel lazy, probably because my circadian rhythm is like all messed up, but also because I worry about what other people will think, knowing that I woke up in the afternoon, like 12 p.m. but I don't feel good. And if I got up earlier, I wouldn't be able to do anything anyway. I just have to lay down. I don't know what the answer is to this. I think it's just not worrying about what other people think, but that's so much easier said than done. It's hard. And I remember when like my mom would talk to people and they would ask like, what is Arianna doing? And maybe she would be like, she's sleeping still. And I would feel embarrassed that I was still sleeping in the afternoon, but it was because I didn't feel good. But then you feel the need to explain yourself, and it just creates this whole cycle of, who are you living for? Are you living for yourself, or this image of yourself that you project to other people? And then that can disconnect you from who you actually are and what you want to do. So that's just all my thoughts right now that's bubbling out of my head. This is a little different than how I expected this podcast to go, but I'm thinking like with this podcast, I just like to roll with whatever I'm thinking about, put out some bullet points to like spark what I'm thinking or what I want to talk about, and then just let it flow, because I don't want to plan it out what I'm saying, because sometimes those most important and most like I can't even think of the word, revolutionary like moments just come out of a spark in that moment, and you can't really think of what to say beforehand. They just happen when you're speaking your opinions and your emotions, and it just comes out of your mouth. So I think that's what I need to say, what I need to get out before I start another episode next week with a different topic. I want this podcast to be honest, and if I just went on talking about something different for this episode and didn't mention how I skipped last week and for why, I think that would just not be true to the podcast. And I want to be honest and open, and maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. Maybe I'm the only one who feels overwhelmed all the time and gets into this cycle of like burnout. Maybe I am, but I doubt it. I think there's probably at least one other person who feels this way, and I understand you, and I'm here for you, and I know we can get through it. Hopefully the summer helps, the sunshine, the warm air. I know it always helps me. I just want to do some quick self promos because I always forget to do this. I have a book called Earthly Thoughts. It's available on Amazon. It's a collection of poems I wrote while I recovered from my head injury. It's pretty interesting. I compared things in nature to the recovery process of a head injury, and I think a lot of people can relate to it even if they haven't had an injury like that, because it's about dealing with what other people think about you and being okay with it, kind of like what we talked about in this podcast. And I also have an Instagram at alohaarianna. I've been posting on it more regularly. I post photography on there, movie stuff. Sometimes I take breaks because I need them and I just will stop posting. But right now I've been posting on there pretty regularly. I also have a YouTube, which is youtube.com/alohaarianna. If you just search Aloha Arianna, it should come up. I've been posting some type of vlogs, kind of. I don't know. Calling them vlogs is kind of doesn't feel authentic. I feel they're more kind of like memories. I've been trying a new editing style and it's been really fun. So if you want to check them out, that's my social media. I just figured to mention it because I'm so bad at promoing, and I figured try to get into the habit of doing it now. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hope to catch you next week on That Weird Friend podcast. I'm your host, Arianna Kaminsky. I hope you stick around because I like your type of weird. I hope you like mine.